Although I usually talk about nutrition and exercise science in my videos and general health, I'm going to depart from my usual topics today and give my take on the 2019 Mr. Olympia contest, which occurred just the other day. Full disclosure, I was not at the contest, but I watched it online in the live feed. I feel that I'm in a special position to comment on this because I covered the Mr. Olympia contest in person for from the late 80s all the way into the late 90s as a writer for various bodybuilding magazines, which I wrote for 35 years. And I know what to look for, and I've been around. This particular Mr. Olympia was of interest to me because of the fact that they were going to crown a new Mr. Olympia. The incumbent Mr. Olympia, Sean Roden, got into some legal trouble and was not allowed to compete, which left the contest wide open, which always makes it much more interesting. I have to say that when Phil Heath was winning it year after year, I found it extremely boring because it was more or less a foregone conclusion who was going to win. I mean, it just took all the excitement out of the contest. So I think that most people would agree that it's a lot more interesting when the contest is up for grabs like it was this time. So what I'm going to talk about here is one comment first. They made a big deal about this $1.4 million purse or prize money. First of all, the prize money is unchanged since last year. I mean, you know, they acted like it was like a new amount or something. It's the same as it was last year. The winner got $400,000 just as last year. The only people that got more money this time were some of the female contestants, and kudos to them. I'm glad that they did get more money. They deserve more. They worked just as hard. I'm happy for them. But, you know, it's a little bit of a deception to emphasize the $1.4 million prize money when it's exactly the same as last year. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about here, I'm going to comment on the contestants as they appeared in order. The first guy out, I first saw him about, was it 2-3 years ago when he first made his appearance in the Olympia. He's from the Netherlands. William Bonac. He's kind of squat. He's short, but he has a very compact but extremely muscular body. He has all the body parts. Great symmetry, great arms, great back. He wasn't ripped at the night show, but he was a little bit more cut than he was at the prejudging. A lot of the guys looked almost waterlogged at the prejudging. A lot of them were holding water, and some of them made fairly significant improvements between the prejudging and the night show. And it's no secret, anyone who follows bodybuilding knows what they did. They dropped the diuretic drug in between the prejudging and the night show. The diuretic drug gets rid of the subcutaneous water in the skin. It makes them look a little bit more defined, so you can actually see the difference. Since the governing bodies of bodybuilding, you know, condemn drugs but do not do any drug testing, these guys could take any drugs they want. So that's what happened. Anyway, as soon as I saw Bonac, I immediately had him in the top 3, even without seeing the other guys, because I saw he was in very good shape, not 100%, but good enough to place the top 3. Because my thing, and I've said this before, is I like the overall body. I like a guy who has all the muscles, all the body parts, symmetry and proportion, not the guy with the biggest arms or the biggest legs. I hate it when a guy has overdilled thighs and skinny calves. I think that looks terrible. I like the guy with the greatest symmetry and everything else, including definition, you know, and all that presentation is involved. And Bonac has most of that stuff. He's a top competitor. So I already knew he was in the top 3. His pecs are a little, his pec developments are light compared to the rest of them, but the guy looks really great. So I had him in the top 3 right to begin with. The next guy out was a guy named Max Charles. He's 5'11". He claimed to weigh 310 pounds, which is utter nonsense. This man did not weigh 310 pounds. I know what 310 pounds look like. You want to know what 310 pounds looks like? Look at Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman, I think in one of his shows, approached 310 pounds. Ronnie Coleman was twice as big as this guy. So this guy was not 310. Why lie about your weight? It's only a question he can ask. I guess he was trying to make himself look bigger. But on the other hand, he did have a thick waist. His arms were good. His lats were a little bit high, which is not much he could do about. That's genetic. His thighs were not cut, probably because of the weight. He didn't weigh 310, but whatever he weighed was too much. He was not in peak condition. He didn't have the hamstring definition. Now, you know, hamstring definition is important because it's become a standard in the pro ranks. You have to have that cut, feathered look in the hamstrings and in the glutes. If you don't have it, you're basically out of the picture. In other words, you're not going to make the top 5. You got to have those cuts in the back, unless you're a guy like Dexter Jackson, who can get away with things because he's been around so long. He's former Mr. Olympia. But other than that, if you're a new guy, you have to have it all together. This guy did not. He needed a little bit more time to get in shape, but he's got good potential. He can come back. The next guy had a lot of hype going into the contest. He's from Iran. His name is Hadi Choopan. Now, my question right off the bat, which nobody seemed to discuss, is how does a guy from Iran get into the United States when Iran is like the #1 enemy other than North Korea of the United States, and Trump is on the warpath against Iran? I mean, nobody from Iran theoretically could get into the United States now, yet this guy just waltzes in and competes in the Mr. Olympia. I mean, that's a story in itself. I don't know how he did it. I suspect that it had something to do with David Pecker being the owner of this contest. Pecker is a buddy of Donald Trump. He might have interceded with Trump to get this guy a quick temporary visa to compete. I'm only guessing. This is pure speculation. I don't know what happened. All I can say is I'm happy the guy competed. I've seen him before. He's a great bodybuilder. He's fantastic. A lot of people thought he should have won. I don't argue that point. He could have won. He's got very wide shoulders. He's got excellent symmetry. I think his thighs are a little bit too big for his calves. He's got the same problem Big Ramy had, meaning he has massive, well-developed thighs. Unfortunately, they're so big, and also when you figure that the guy is under 5'8", makes his thighs look even bigger. I felt his thighs were a little bit out of proportion to his calves, but that's something I noticed. A lot of people wouldn't notice that. But he's got good overall definition, wide lats, and as I said, this guy could easily have won. I just want to comment while I'm on the subject of height. This is the first time I could recall where all of the top finishers were all under like 5'8". I've never seen that before. There's usually at least one taller guy who makes the top 6. Didn't happen this time. But I should also tell you that the taller you are, the harder it is to build a lot of muscle on your body. When you're shorter, because of the difference in bone structure, you could actually look bigger when you're shorter. So, guys like Lou Ferrigno and guys like that in the past, he was 6'5", they have a harder time looking big, although Lou definitely did look big. There's no question about that. The next guy up was a guy named Lucas Osladil. He's from Czechoslovakia. The thing that I noticed about him was his weird posing, like he stood up on one leg and he kind of did this weird, almost like a bird pose. I guess he was trying to be creative, but kudos to him for trying to be different than the usual, this stuff and this stuff, very boring poses. At least he tried to be creative. He's 5'8", 215. He's not that big at 215 in the Mr. Olympia. That's a small bodybuilder, but almost just slightly bigger than the 212 class. But he's got good condition. He's got good calves. He's got good potential, I think, for the future. Next guy up was Michael Lockett. Michael has a little light on the leg development. He's 35 years old, 5'9", 215. He's got big arms, a little bit long torso, high lats. You can't do anything much about high lats. I don't mean it to sound like a criticism. If you don't have the insertions, you don't have the insertions. I think high lats, however, in my opinion, can be overcome by having exceptional back development. In other words, separation in the upper lower back. If you have high lats, nobody notices if you have that kind of separation. So guys with high lats, take that into account. Get your upper back as cut and separate as possible. The way to do that, by the way, just real fast, is you do full movements. When you do your rows, all elbows all the way back. When you do the pull down, all the way back. When you do your chins, touch your lower pecs to the bar. That's how you get that upper back separation. That's the way Flex Wheeler used to train. That's why he had that great upper back. Most guys I see in the gym, when they do one-arm rows, they're going like this. They're doing these. They use like 150 pounds. They're doing 2 inches. They're not getting any back. They're not only not getting back separation, they're not even working their lats. They're working their wrists and their biceps. I'm a little bit off track, so let me get back to this. Next guy up was a guy named Mohammed Shaban, it looks like. He was from Egypt. Now, Egypt produced a fantastic bodybuilder years ago, Mohammed Makawi, also a short guy, maybe 5'4". Mohammed was, actually, I think he almost beat Lee Haney a couple of times in Mr. Olympia. He had a complete total package body, tremendous. Mohammed Makawi trained under the guidance of Vince Caranda for a while, who really improved his appearance. But this is the next guy from Egypt. Mohammed Shaban, he's got great arms. He had a little bit of water retention like a lot of the guys. I'm not sure what they did wrong. They got a lot of these guys depend on so-called coaches, and I don't want to condemn all these coaches, but I've seen some of the programs that they give these guys as far as contest preparation goes, and there's just ridiculous. There's no scientific basis. I can see where things can go wrong as far as last-minute water retention because of some of these programs that are provided by these coaches. I don't know, what can I say? Anyway, he had a little bit of water retention. Again, didn't have the definition of the hamstrings needed to place in the top 6. His pecs were a little on the light side. He had a little slight stomach bloat. Now, I'll comment on that. As a lot of you know, the stomach bloat, I made a video about that, about the possible causes of the stomach bloat. A couple of years ago, a lot of the bodybuilders, in fact, Phil Heath, a lot of people think he lost the Mr. Olympia last year because his stomach was still bloated. He had everything else to win, but he still had that bloat. The bloat was really bad a couple of years ago. In the last couple of years, it's kind of quelled down a little bit. And, kudos to the guys in this show. I looked at them in the pre-judging. I saw a lot of them relax. I only saw a slight amount of belly bloat in these guys, much less than in the past. So kudos to them. Whatever they're doing it right. That bloat looks terrible and definitely will get marked down by the judges. Nobody likes a professional bodybuilder who looks like he's 9 months pregnant. The next guy up was, of course, one of the great bodybuilders of all time. It's a funny thing about Dexter Jackson. I've been around for years. People know me. I've been around for years. I've never actually met Dexter. He trains at the same gym as me, Gold's Gym in Venice, but he trains at a different time. I've never met the man. And you'd think I would run into him at one time, but I never have. But I can tell you I have great respect for him as a bodybuilder. And he had, previous to this Olympia, he had just won a pro show in Florida, which was his 29th victory, 29th professional victory. I think, as far as I know, that's the record for the most number of victories by any professional bodybuilder. And the most startling thing about all this is that Dexter Jackson is 49 years of age. I understand he's turning 50 in about 2 months. And, before I offer my critique, I just want to say how remarkable this guy is to still look as great as he does at 49, beating guys half his age. But, he's an unusual type. Most guys his age cannot look like him. He's kind of a freak of nature. You got to give the guy credit. Even more startling when you consider the guy started out as a bantamweight. He was a little tiny guy when he first got into bodybuilding. And now, he's like literally 3 times the size he was. So this guy clearly knows what he's doing. But anyway, Dexter was, of course, the 2008 Mr. Olympia. He won that title. The first Mr. Olympia he entered was 1999. So this guy's been competing in the Mr. Olympia for 20 years. He's like I say, he's 49 years old. He's 5'6". He weighed 247 pounds. I think when he started out in bodybuilding, he weighed something like 160 or something like that. That's unbelievable, Anyway, he's not as ripped. You see, they call him the Blade because he's always known for his conditioning. He's always been shredded, always been ripped. Unfortunately, the one thing I think that age shows in him, he's not quite as hard as he was in the past. I'm not saying he looks smooth, but if you've seen Dexter in the past, you've seen him looking a little bit harder than he did at this contest. So he was in good shape, but not ripped because of that, because he wasn't at his best. After the prejudging, I actually did not have him in the top 6, and I know a lot of people agree with me because I was judging on his conditioning as well as his appearance. I felt he was not at his best, I felt a couple other guys were, so I didn't have Dexter in the top 6 after the prejudging. I will admit that. Unfortunately, Dexter was one of the few guys in the shows that did show a little bit of an ab bloat. He did have a little bit of ab bloat, and his calves are still on the weak side. But he has tremendous shoulders, tremendous arms, and he has a good overall appearance. I don't know how long he intends to keep competing, but the guy is still beating guys younger. So next guy up was Steve Kuklos. I've always admired Kuklos' calves, and those calves are genetic. Believe me, you don't build calves like Kuklos. They have huge calves. He's 5'11", claimed to weigh 270 pounds. He's got very wide shoulders. His abs are kind of on the light side. He doesn't have thick abs. He needs more back separation to really break into the top 6, I think. He doesn't have the hamstring detail, which I said, that's going to hold him out of the top six. You got to have that hamstring detail. It's absolutely essential in this particular pro division, especially the Mr. Olympia. If you don't have you're going up against guys that have the ripped hamstrings and glutes, and you don't, you're out. It's that simple. He has good thigh development and good symmetry, a little bit on the smooth side, not totally in 100% contest shape. Next guy up was Luke Sandow. This guy is this is the next great guy from England after Dorian Yates. Interesting name, his name is Luke Sandow. I mean, could you imagine if he won the Mr. Olympia? It would be Luke Sandow winning the Sandow Trophy. Kind of funny. Anyway, he has great arms. Big guy. Looks really big. Great arms, shoulders, thighs. His calves are great. Wide lats. His glutes were cut. He's got very thick traps, big traps. I wouldn't call him ripped, but he did look better at the night show than he did at the prejudging. Another one of the guys that probably dropped the diuretic between the prejudging and the night show, and his skin got a lot thicker. He lost the water under his skin. He looked a lot better at the night show. He's got also another guy with a slight ab bloat. Not the pot belly, not the pregnant look, but you could see it in certain poses. When he turns to the side, he had a slight ab bloat. Next guy up, I thought was a pretty impressive guy. In fact, I was so impressed with this guy, who, frankly, I'd never heard of before, that I actually had him in the top six after the prejudging. But I guess as a newcomer, they thought that he should, wait a little bit. His name is Patrick Moore. I thought he had great shape, very small waist, 6 foot, 230 pounds. His thighs were cut. He's got fantastic potential, complete body. He needs a little bit more size to win, but he can get that. His structure is good enough to hold more size. He's got a great back, great lower back, good poser. And I think I would call him the best newcomer in this contest. Again, great potential. I think you're going to be seeing if this guy can wait it out. I think he's going to definitely break the top six within a year or two. Very impressive bodybuilder. Next guy up was a guy who I kind of like. Again, I never met the man, but I like the way he comes off. He comes off with a personality. Doesn't come off like, some robot like some of the guys do. Cedric McMillan, of course, he's won the Arnold show. Arnold likes him personally. Arnold thinks he's one of the best. He's one of the taller guys. Looks like he's about 6'1". He was a special invite. I guess he didn't qualify for this year's Olympia, but they invited him, which I thought was a pretty good choice. Although it would have been nice to possibly invite, if he was interested, it would have been really interesting if Kai Green was in shape and they would have given him the special invite. I think that would have changed the course of the entire contest. I'll comment on that a little bit later, more in depth. But in any case, he was a little bit soft. He has a good muscle shape, good back. He's got mediocre calves, Cedric. He's a tall guy. And his thighs are pretty cut. As I said, he won the Arnold show. And I guess he claims a height of 6 foot rather than 6'1". And he is a good poser. He does try and pose well. Nice segueing in between poses. He could come back and I think win some titles. I'm not sure if he could win the Olympia, but who knows? If he gets really in great shape, it's always a possibility. And Cedric McMillan is in the U.S. Army, so he's got a family. I mean, for him to get in any kind of shape, you got to give the guy credit, because I'm sure he's got a lot of responsibilities there, being in the Army, having the wife and kids and stuff. The fact that he got in this good a shape, I don't know how much time he had to train for the shows, but he was in good enough shape where he certainly wasn't an embarrassment in any way. He looked good. He was definitely Olympia, deserved to be in the Olympia lineup. Next guy, again, a guy never heard of, John De La Rosa. I remember there was a singer named Julian. Never mind. Anyway, John De La Rosa. He had a little bit of a thick waist. He was 5'7", 230 pounds, light muscle in the upper body, a little bit of water retention. Another guy with a little bit of water retention. He won the Toronto Pro Show, and he was an overall USA champion, which this is how he got qualified for the Olympia. It seems that there's so many pros that are, these days that you can't even keep track of it. When I covered the Olympia, it took a little bit more to get into the pro ranks, to get a pro card than it does today. But anyway, next guy up was Juan Morel. He's 5'11", 295 pounds. Again, I don't think so. This guy did not look 295 pounds to me at all. He won the Arnold Brazil. He won the New York Pro Show. His calves are a little on the weak side. He needs a little bit of upper back thickness. He needs a little bit more triceps in comparison to his biceps. And he needs that all-important back separation. Without that back separation, forget it. You're not going to get in there. You're not going to win. Next guy up was the guy who was, by just about everybody's prognostication, was going to be this year's Mr. Olympia, judging by his videos and what he put out in the photos before the contest. This was, of course, Brandon Currie. This guy's like a brick. I mean, he's really thick. He's got extremely wide lats, very thick lats. He's got thick shoulders, big arms, big lats. Of course, he's won the Arnold show. He's won the Arnold New Zealand show. He's won the Arnold Brazil show. He's got a huge, great track record for competition. He's very thick. He's a good poser. He lives in Tennessee, but he trains in Kuwait at the what's it called again? I can't remember the name of the gym. But anyway, he trains in Kuwait, and I'm not sure why. I guess he has a good coach there. But he has a wife and 4 kids. 3 of the kids are up on stage after he won. I guess his wife is willing to put up with him being away most of the year. And I guess this time it turned out to be okay. He was harder at the night show than at the prejudging. Another guy who probably dropped the diuretic. And, of course, that helped him. I mean, the competition was very close this time. It was not a walkaway like it's been in the past. You know, when Lee Haney was winning year after year, when Arnold was winning, when Dorian Yates was winning, when Ronnie Coleman, this was definitely not a walkaway for Brandon Currie. I mean, if he won, I'm sure he didn't. You know, it was close between him and the other guys because he did not destroy the other guys like it has been in the past. When you see, for example, when Ronnie Coleman's walked out, a couple of times when Heath walked out, even when Jay Cutler walked out a couple of times, the contest was already over. You could see the judging was from second on down. It was not this way this year. It could have gone any way. Brandon Currie was great, but in my opinion, he was not that much greater than some of the other guys who broke the top 6. But he did win. The next guy up was Akeem Williams. Got another guy with high lats, can't do anything about it. A little bit weak on the calf size, huge arms. Abs were a little weak. He needs muscle separation. His skin looked a little bit too thick. That might be a genetic thing. I'm not sure how much he could do about that. Again, another guy with a slight ab bloat. You know, cut back on that insulin, pal. You know, it's whoever was coaching you didn't do it right. And the next guy was one of the more sensational guys, one of the best light guys, Roelly Winkler, who also trained. I just remember the name of the gym. I think it's called the Oxygen Gym, which is good to know. Hopefully, you know, it's in Kuwait. I mean, it's nice to know that the gym has some oxygen in it. Otherwise, it'd be very difficult to train. Anyway, Roelly Winkler, he's got great abs, arms, shoulders, waist. He's 5'6", get this, 5'6", and he says he weighs 297 pounds. 297 pounds at 5'6". Think about that for a second. Picture in your mind what the average guy would look like walking down the street, standing 5'6", weighing 297. He'd be like 6 foot wide, and it wouldn't be muscle. But you know, I'm not sure whether Roelly really weighed 297, but whatever he weighed, he was pretty big. I'll tell you, especially for his height. He was a bit on the flat side, but I still was impressed by him enough where I had him in the top 6. You know, he had enough going for him. I thought he made the top 6. I heard he had a hamstring injury. Only about 2 weeks before the show. That might have hampered his hamstring training before the contest. You know, Roelly was one of the guys in the past who had a huge abdominal bloat problem. I mean, this guy looked like a couple of years ago, he looked like he was pregnant. It looked terrible. Somehow, he's really flattened it out a lot. I mean, where he shows almost no bloat at all. I mean, maybe a slight one. I didn't even see it. So whatever he's done to correct that, again, kudos to him, because it looks a lot better. I think if he had the bloat, he wouldn't have made even the top 6. But, you know, thank God whoever he's working with helped him to get rid of that bloat. So anyway, that's the People's Champ is an award. They supposedly what the people in the audience call in or whatever. They give to, this award to whoever the people's most popular bodybuilder is. And this time it was Hadi Choopan, who, was brought up on stage. Of course, he's from Iran. He couldn't speak any English. This happened a couple of times in the bikini show. The woman who won the Bikini Olympia was from Portugal. She also only spoke Portuguese, and they tried to stupidly converse with these people, even though these people made it clear they didn't understand English. Why they couldn't have had a little interpreter around, as a question I can't answer. But anyway, this is the way I had it after the prejudging. I had Currie in first. I had Bonac second. I had Hadi third. I had Winkler fourth. I had McMillan fifth, and I had Moore, the new guy, Moore, in sixth, because I was very impressed with his overall look. Unfortunately, this time the only thing I got right was the top three. The second three I didn't get right, because the final placings were Brandon Currie won $400,000. And this was, by the way, was the 15th. Brandon Currie, by winning this title, is the 15th Mr. Olympia winner. There's only been 15 Mr. Olympia winners since the inception of the contest in 1965. Brandon Currie won $400,000. Second was William Bonac, got 150 grand. And just for comparison, the first Mr. Olympia, Larry Scott, got $1,000. That's it. So even though I think these guys are underpaid, I have to admit, compared to the 1965 prize money of $1,000, I mean, 400,000, 400 times greater. That's quite a leap. But remember, it's been over 50 years, and if you consider the inflation effect, 1,065, I estimate, would probably be worth about 15 grand today, maybe even 20 grand. So, just a little commentary here. I'm not impressed. Before I tell you, let me finish telling you the winners. The third place guy was Hadi Choopan, who got 100,000. Fourth was Dexter Jackson, 45,000. I felt that Dexter got fourth because of the fact that he was a previous Mr. Olympia. He has he's very well respected by the judges, I'm sure. Am I trying to say he got a gift? I believe he did. It's not that he looked terrible, but I felt that there were other guys that should have placed in the top six rather than Dexter. That's my opinion. I'm sure there's a lot of people that'll disagree with me. Roelly Winkler got fifth, and he got 40 grand. I was about to comment on the money. As I said in the beginning of this video, Pecker brags about the 1.4 million. In the meantime, he's paid some of Trump's mistresses, about $170,000 for doing absolutely nothing, to keep their mouths shut. These guys practically kill themselves with the drug use they use. I'd like to see these guys get a little bit more money. I mean, I think Mr. Olympia should get a lot more than $400,000. And, with all the sponsors they have in this contest and the money that Pecker has, they can easily pay these guys a lot more money. How much do I think Mr. Olympia should win? Well, if you go by the inflation and everything else, you go by the amount of risk involved, to their health. And, and let's face it, you cannot compete in the Mr. Olympia without using drugs. So somebody might say, well, nobody forces them to use drugs. Yeah, in the meantime, try competing in the Mr. Olympia without taking any drugs. You'll be laughed off the stage. So these guys put their health at considerable risk. I think that should be taken into account. I think a more realistic figure for the winner of the Mr. Olympia should be at least 1.5 million. At least 1.5 million. It probably won't happen for God knows how many years, if it ever happens, but that's my opinion. Big announcement at the contest was that the Miss Olympia is returning next year. They deleted or they cut out the Miss Olympia 5 years ago because of I've heard various reasons. They didn't like the direction that the women were going in. They were getting too muscular, whatever. I guess they had trouble getting sponsors. Blah 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 blah. Who knows the real reason? But in any case, for again unknown reasons, they've now reconsidered. I guess a couple of companies got together. Who knows? They're bringing back the Miss Olympia contest next year, which I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that. That's great for the female bodybuilders because they train very hard. And last thing I want to discuss, I know this video is a little on the long side. Thank you for bearing with me. I want to just speculate here, just for fun, and maybe you guys could leave comments after this. watching this Mr. Olympia, first of all, nobody really stood out to me as mind-boggling. In the past, I've some of the Olympias I've watched, like when Lee Haney and Dorian Yates. I mean, when these guys stood, when some of these guys stood on this, even the guys that didn't win, Nasser El Somebody, Sean Ray when he was in break. I mean, these guys looked just unbelievable. I mean, they just really stood out. I didn't get that feeling this year looking at any of these guys. I'm not saying they look bad. I'm not saying Brandon Currie isn't great, but none of them, like blew my mind, so to speak. I got a blasé, all right, they look good, but does anyone really look spectacular? No, that's not my opinion. Which made me think about this. I kind of thought, what would happen if Phil Heath had competed? Now he qualifies. Phil Heath as a what? I think it was his 7-time Mr. Olympia. I mean, he can qualify anytime he wants. What would happen if Phil Heath had competed in this show, and he had competed somehow without that belly bloat that always hampers him? My personal opinion is if Phil Heath had competed in this show, he would have won so easily it would have been a sick joke. He would have come on stage as soon as he walked down in the pre-judging. It would have been again a contest second on down. He would have won so easily it would have been ridiculous. None of these guys can touch Phil Heath, and so that's my opinion. Then I thought about Kai Green. Now Kai Green, what if Kai Green? Now Kai Green is something like, I think he's 44 years old, something like that, maybe a little older. I'm not sure, but I saw Kai Green for some reason is still very big. And he has everything when this guy's in shape. The only problem he has is water retention, and he gets that bloat also. What if they had invited Kai Green, special invite, and he had somehow showed up in the kind of shape he was in when he won the Arnold contest in Columbus? My opinion, Kai Green again would have apped these guys. If 100 points was maximum, Kai Green would have had 100, and the next guy, maybe Brandon Currie, would have had 40. That's how far ahead Kai Green would have beaten these guys, in my opinion. Then I couldn't help thinking about Shawn Rhoden, the incumbent Mr. Olympia. Of course, Shawn wasn't allowed to compete because of his legal problems. What if Shawn had been allowed to compete? What if he didn't have those legal problems? What if he came back to defend his title? Could he have gotten in the same shape or better? Here's the way I look at Shawn Rhoden. I think Shawn Rhoden personally has a better looking physique than any of the guys, any of the top 6 this year. When Shawn Rhoden's in shape, I think he has a much better aesthetic looking physique than any of the top 6 guys this year. Now, assuming that if Shawn Rhoden could have gotten a little bit better shape than last year, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit harder, I think Shawn Rhoden would have successfully defended his title. I think he would have beaten Brandon Currie because he has better lines, better symmetry, and just a better looking body, in my opinion, than Brandon. Now, again, not taking anything away from Brandon. Brandon's fantastic in his own way, but I just think that Shawn Rhoden is just a more aesthetic bodybuilder, and I just think he looks a little bit better. But that's assuming he would be in great shape. If he was off and he did compete, he might have gotten 3rd, 4th, or maybe not even made the top 6. So that's an assumption that Shawn Rhoden would have competed in top shape. Anyway, maybe under the comments of this video, you guys can leave your opinion on that. I mean, how you think some of these other guys would have done in this contest had they competed. I mean, it's an interesting speculation. I just gave you my opinion. Thanks for listening. And by the way, any people that are interested, I write extensively on how to prepare for bodybuilding contests from a scientific, rational point of view, not this garbage where you wind up holding water. In my Applied Metabolics newsletter, I also cover nutrition, exercise science, hormonal therapy, supplements that work, supplements that don't, fat loss techniques that really work, anti-aging research, women's health and fitness, and many other subjects. 40 to 50 pages every month. It's all evidence-based. Also includes my 58 years of constant study and experience. You can subscribe today at appliedmetabolics.com. If you subscribe, I will send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where every day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, health, and medicine. Every day. It's only for current subscribers. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics website where you're welcome to submit questions if you are a subscriber. I don't answer unsolicited questions. I'm sorry, I only have time for my subscribers, but you're welcome to leave comments under this video. You could also leave, if you want, you could leave suggestions for future videos. And if you want to have the bet, where's Bruno? He's in here somewhere. Bruno has no interest whatsoever in the Mr. Olympia. Anyway, if you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. I know this is a long video. Thank you for listening.